Hi, friends. Today we're going to be discussing chapter 3 of Salt, Sugar, Fat. And it is about convenience foods. And I will tell you what, this was a really long chapter, but it had a lot of convenience with a capital C. It had a lot of interesting things in here about how a lot of these convenience foods started and how home economic teachers at first were not for it, but then the food industry started recruiting them to work for them and help them to develop and get excited about convenience foods. And years ago, it was exciting for housewives because it took out a lot of the work. They could make things a lot faster. One of the first things they talked about in the chapter was pudding.
Now, isn't that weird? It took all day just to make pudding, and you could ruin it really easily if you didn't keep stirring it.
Exactly. And they hired a gentleman named Al Clausy who was going to be, I think, a doctor, and he had applied to go to Hopkins Medical School. And while he was waiting for that, his dad said, "Hey, you're a chemist. Look, there's a job here where you could work for the food industry." And he worked for the industry for over 40 years. He ended up creating instant pudding, which took years to develop. Initially, they did not want to use chemicals or crappy things. They wanted it to be all natural, but it needed to thicken really fast. And after a competitor called National Foods created
National Foods, do they exist anymore?
I don't think so.
No, they don't.
And they tried to create an instant pudding using a bunch of chemicals. And then General Foods decided, oh, what the heck? Um, we don't care anymore. Use chemicals, use whatever you can. You've got to make your pudding faster than National Foods
Because they were
instant
patenting
pudding.
theirs already.
Yeah. And so anyway, this chapter is really about how all the things that they did to make foods more convenient and by putting in all kinds of additives and chemicals to the foods. And some people were upset about this and they wanted natural things. But later, a lot of people were like getting used to that this was actually a good thing. Another thing I found,
Well, 15 minutes to make pudding instead of all day,
yeah,
that's a big change.
that is a big change.
But you know what I was thinking about with that?
What were you thinking, Jeff?
Well, that the national brand that had the patent that they were trying to bring to market, the stuff that would congeal, but it would keep on congealing. If you didn't eat it really quick, it would become like rubbery.
Yeah.
I was thinking, yeah, it would look like that on the counter. What would it have looked like inside of someone's stomach? You know,
Ugh.
just keeps on getting rubbery and rubbery. I mean, people really didn't take those kind of health kind of things into consideration. I think
No.
just in order to sell stuff to the public.
And I've been thinking too about all the times that I made instant pudding for my kids, for my family, uh, thinking that this was good, it was healthy, it has milk in it. Hey, this is a nutritious treat. But there's I didn't even think about all the chemicals that are in instant pudding to make it instant and fast. And I remember as a kid, my mom making pudding on the stove
Uh huh.
and really having to stir, stir, stir to get it to cook and be done, and then waiting and waiting and waiting while it was in the refrigerator to cool before we could eat it. And I remember when she made instant pudding and how exciting that was that we could have it so fast. But really interesting. Another thing that I didn't know, did you know they made up Betty Crocker? There really is no Betty Crocker. I own a Betty Crocker cookbook, and a lot of the recipes in it that I cooked for my kids came from the Betty Crocker cookbook. I thought for sure there must have been a Miss Betty Crocker somewhere who wrote these books, but Betty Crocker was made
Fake,
up.
fake.
Fake. And people would write to Betty Crocker. She had a big fan base, and people would write her fan mail, and somebody would respond as if they were Betty Crocker from the company, but there was no Betty Crocker.
Wasn't there a picture of her on the front of the cookbook?
I'm not sure. I remember a spoon. It'd be kind of like red checkerboard, and there being a spoon on Betty Crocker's cookbook, but there was no Betty Crocker. There is no Betty Crocker. Um, I also found it interesting about how Tang was developed, and how Tang was just a bunch of chemicals too that they threw some vitamin C in, and it really took off when astronauts. It was better for astronauts because it wasn't as bulky, and so it was lighter because you wanted not have heavy things in the rocket. So
It cost so much per ounce for stuff to
yeah.
send to space, and that would have been just way too heavy.
Yeah, exactly. And when astronauts were drinking Tang, well, that made it even more exciting for moms to make Tang for their kids.
Kids
But
who wanted to be astronauts someday.
yeah,
That was like me. I
yeah,
would have loved to have been an astronaut and drink Tang and on the moon.
yeah. And I drank Tang at my house as a kid too. Do they still sell Tang, Jeff?
I think they do.
I don't know. If you know if there's still Tang in the grocery stores, please let me know in the chat or in the comments. Um, that would be really interesting to see. Today, I'm doing the book club um, in the town of Elkhart. We were at camp and at an Embassy RV camp meetup.
And we had no
Oh
bandwidth
my
there.
gosh, there was no bandwidth there. So
One bar of 4G.
yeah, so it was not good.
Okay, I think we're still on.
Do you think
Sorry
we're
about
still
that.
on?
If you just had it blink off for a minute, I'm trying to do this on my phone, which is trying to blank out on me. Okay, I think we're good. Go ahead.
Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, good. So anyway, sorry I was a few minutes late today. We were just trying to find a spot that we could park to do our live and have full internet bandwidth. And this McDonald's parking lot actually is working out pretty good for us. Is anyone,
As far as we know.
as far as we know, yeah. So if you could let us know in the chat if you could see or hear us. And did you read chapter 3? What was a big takeaway from you from this chapter? And also, if anyone's had any wins this week, if you've read the chapter or not, what were some of the wins that you've had this week?
And if your name is Betty Crocker, no, just kidding. Okay.
Oh my
Do you want to
goodness.
hear some comments?
Yeah,
Or are you ready to hear some?
let's hear some comments.
Okay. Tony Johnson wrote, let's see. Once again, we've been, show on stage, see if I can do this correctly. Once again, we've been sabotaged by another food inventor. I knew the first time I saw the name Betty that it was going to be Betty Crocker. I didn't think I even know she wasn't a real person.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I had no idea she was not a real person.
And let's see. Tony Johnson also says, I still have a couple of Betty Crocker cookbooks.
Yeah.
They were the best. I still use them for recipes today.
And and they are cooking from scratch, the Betty Crocker cookbooks, or the one that I have is. And some of my best recipes that I've made have come from the Betty Crocker cookbook. But yeah, I had no idea there was really no Betty Crocker.
And let's see if I can. Oh. Well, this is really hard to do on a little phone, Gina.
I'm sorry. We usually do this from home with our computer, but Jeff's doing it on his cell phone today, so that way we could do this even as we're traveling.
Okay, and Tony Johnson says, I guess we're on later today than we usually are. I would have gone to the gym this afternoon if I had known that earlier. Oh well, tomorrow is another day.
Well, But then she did find us because she had some other comments, correct?
Well, we'll see in a second here. Let's see. And then Tony Johnson wrote, let's see if I can show this on the stage too. Blood tests came back this week when I had a meeting with my provider. Down again in my A1C to
Yay!
5.9.
That's excellent, Tony. Congratulations.
Started at 6.8 earlier this year.
Whoa, yeah, that's a big difference. That is a really big difference. I bet your doctor's really excited about that for you.
And let's see. And I just read that one. Sorry, hold on. My fingers need to be skinnier.
While he's looking through and trying to go with that, I also found it was interesting that they made dog food convenience and with the Gaines burgers. And I remember when Gaines burgers came out, it looked like kind of like a fake hamburger, and it had a little wrapper, and you take the cellophane off and then break it up. And my dogs loved it. They loved Gaines burgers.
You know what dogs said about Gaines burgers?
What'd they say?
Okay,
but yeah, they were
sorry.
even making convenience foods for dogs.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, and Tony Johnson says, I didn't realize it started way back in the 1950s.
Yeah, that they've been working on this for a long time. And I'm still just in shock, all the chemicals that go into instant pudding and in other things. So it's really making me think hard about trying to cook more food from scratch and using whole ingredients, and how much better that'll be for us, Jeff.
Yes. And it's one thing to think about. It's hard to read these all of these different ingredients names and think, well, I shouldn't get ultra processed food, but realizing the reason that these came to be was so that they could compete at the marketplace and
with
be able to make a lot of money, because some brands were finding out, oh, there's no rules against using these weird chemicals. Let's just try it out and see if it'll work, and hopefully people don't get hurt with their health.
Exactly.
But I think they didn't find out. That's why we have this obesity kind of crisis.
I also found it interesting that Pop-Tarts weren't the first Pop-Tarts, that another company had created something that was very similar to a Pop-Tart, and it was called Pop-Ups. But yet Pop-Tarts have really taken off to be a leader. And I do have a funny personal story about Pop-Tarts. When I was in maybe 5th or 6th grade, my mom wasn't home and I was taking care of my younger brother. I was babysitting my younger brother, and I put in some Pop-Tarts for us into the toaster.
What does it say on the side of the carton, Gina?
It doesn't say it. It says it now, but it didn't say it back when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
When I put my Pop-Tart in the toaster, the frosting side kind of fell into the tines a little bit and started on fire. And I remember there were flames coming up from my toaster, and the flames were licking the cabinets above me or above the toaster. And I remember being so scared, thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so my brother ran out on the porch and started screaming, fire, fire, fire. We didn't have 911 back in the day, and was yelling, fire, fire, fire. And another a kid older than me in the community came running, and his name was Billy. And Billy came into the house, and he got a bucket full of water, and my plugged-in toaster that was on fire, he poured a bucket of water onto the toaster. And let me tell you, my toaster did not like that. That's when I learned that you don't pour water on an electrical fire, because it made all kinds of sparks and terrible noises. And then I unplugged it. Thank goodness that I had the brains to unplug it, as such a young kid. And I learned very quickly that you don't do that. And then I noticed later there must have been a lot of fires that had happened, because later there's a warning on the back of your Pop-Tarts about that.
Supervise your Pop-Tarts in the toaster.
Yes, and don't walk away from the toaster if you because it can start a fire. And my Pop-Tart sure did. And my mom was so mad. I don't think she bought Pop-Tarts for us anymore.
Smart. I think that was a smart idea.
Yeah. Or if we were going to have Pop-Tarts, we weren't allowed to put them in the toaster. We'd have to eat them cold.
And Tony Johnson also says, hello from Tennessee.
Yay! Hey, Tony.
And
thanks, Tony, for sharing your win this week, too. And we won't be too long today, so you can still have time so you can go to the gym.
And that appears to be the last comment that I can see.
Is that the last one?
Yep.
Okay. These are really much longer chapters than the other two books that we read in our weight loss book club. I'll have to remember that as well, to take some extra time to read them. And next week is chapter 4. Let's see what
Deb Zimmerman says.
Yay! Deb's in the house. Hey, Deb.
Hi, Jeff and Gina.
Good to see you, Deb. Hey, Deb, did you have any wins this week?
Let's see if I can get back to.
While he's trying to find Deb's wins, on chapter 4 next week is it cereal or candy?
Candy.
Yeah.
Oh wait, are you asking me that question?
No, that is the title. The title is the question. Is it cereal or candy?
You know what? Maybe we should ask what they thought the most interesting thing in this chapter was.
Sure.
Because mine was. You want to hear
what
mine?
was yours? Yeah. What was yours?
Mine
Jeff?
was about alphabets and how they made that happen. Yeah, and like they had to throw it across the room or some weird thing to make the for the
and
alphabet.
Making the letters. Yeah.
Making the letters. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's
one
crazy.
of my favorite cereals as a kid. Used to make words floating around in the milk.
Mm-hmm. Actually, my mom wouldn't buy me a lot of the sugary cereals, and she was like, "No, I'm not going to buy you Lucky Charms with marshmallows in there. That's candy. I want to buy you, you need to eat something more nutritious." But she would let us get us alphabets. So maybe she was thinking with that one, at least we're getting education out of it.
Oh, it's too bad they didn't have a math-based cereal, like equations and stuff.
Oh, goodness. Anyway. That would be funny.
Okay, Deb Zimmerman says, let's see. Yes, yep. I hit the one. Wait. I wish my glasses were better.
Oh, here.
I hit the 159.
Wow, Deb, that's fantastic. I'm proud of you. I am a ways from there right now, but I would love to hit
86 pounds down.
86 pounds. 86, wow, Deb. Wow. That is awesome. A lot of people that are a part of our weight loss book club also join me on Monday evenings when I do, when I give myself my Mounjaro shot, which is a type 2 diabetes medicine, but it has the side effect of helping you lose weight. And Deb's also part of that group too that shows up for that. And a lot of us on the Weight Loss Book Club, we are taking GLP-1s like Wegovy, Zepbound, Mounjaro, Ozempic. But Jeff's not. Jeff's doing it the old-fashioned way. He does not have type 2 diabetes, and we cannot afford for him to take the medication because it's not covered under our insurance for him.
Yeah. I think that's the last comment.
Is that the last comment?
I think so.
Okay, well, we're going to head back to camp because we're still camping. But like I said, at camp, we didn't have any good internet. But I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow when I do my Mounjaro Monday Live. And next week, we'll be doing Chapter 4, Is It Cereal or Candy? From Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. You can find this book possibly at a library or a bookstore, or you can also find it on our Anchor Moments
Amazon store storefront.
and it'll be under the book list,
Right,
so
it's
you can
more of a
find it easily.
storefront. We're not really selling it.
Yeah,
We're
we're
just
not
kind
really
of
a storefront.
linking
It's
to the
our
things that are our
favorites
favorites.
page. It's our favorites page of everything that you can buy on Amazon, the things that are our favorites. And if you do go to amazon.com/shop/anchor moments and check out what some of our favorite things are, if you buy it from there, it costs the exact same as buying it from Amazon, and it's actually shipped to you from Amazon. It's all Amazon. It's just my page of the things that I recommend, that I use, and that I
And
like.
they gave us a teensy-weensy something, like a nickel or something like that.
Yeah.
It's probably a percentage. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So
But
it's not a lot, but
No.
every little bit,
Right.
every little bit helps. And it's a way you could support our channel.
And it's a neat way to be able to put our recommendations in one spot.
Yeah, and so people can find them. We also have recommendations for RVing as well. And today you're catching us live in our van, which we've named Grace. Just a quick little, I don't know, it's probably too dark back there.
It is
but
too dark back
yeah,
there.
too
my dear.
dark back there in our van. But you can catch
push
some of our
all
travel,
lights.
videos on that's okay. You can catch some of our travel videos too on our other YouTube channel, Anchor Moments RV. Any other comments, Jeff, before
me
we
take a
sign
look
off
and see.
today?
Tony Johnson wrote.
Yay.
Hold on. I'll be in Alaska next week.
Wow,
See you
Tony.
later in June.
Oh, that's fantastic. Have fun. That would be really exciting.
And I think that's the very last one.
The very last one. All right, everybody, hold on to your anchor moments and make it a great day. Bye-bye.